Greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing climate change, abrupt climate change, things adjacent. The state of the world, as it actually factually is, trying to stay close to reality if we can. It's difficult in this post-truth era. I basically started this channel so that I could vent, I guess, about my feelings around climate change, but also, around other things that are going on in my mind. This is a news channel. That's why news is in the name. So I am trying to give people information, but I'm also trying to process information myself and hopefully help others process information as well. Sorry, there's a lot of coffee in my mustache. Thank you all, as usual, for your comments and the discussion. Sorry if I tread on some toes with my talk about Rachel Maddow, but that's how I feel. I realize when you talk about climate change, this is such a strange issue, because it really slices through a lot of things for people. It slices through ideological divides on so many levels, not just left and right, but whether or not you might be someone who supports capitalism or doesn't support capitalism, or even understands the role in capitalism around climate change. It really is an issue that touches on so many levels for people. It's not just ideological. It's not just even racial. For some people think this is like a white person's issue. I don't know. It's true though. That's, I see it on Facebook and in other places that occasionally people are like, oh, this is, but as many people will tell you, it's actually something that affects the poor and brown people way more, and is going to be more destructive and more hurtful to those without defenses or money, much sooner than those who are somewhat insulated by either privilege or their monetary status. So again, this channel is here to try and help educate people around what is going on, to have honest and open discussions around what is going on. I'm cool if you disagree with me. I just, would ask that people give a lot of space for, like, I take in a lot of information from a lot of places, and I take in information from people who are diametrically opposed to me ideologically sometimes, just because I like to see things from another perspective. I once dated someone who imparted some very important information to me one time, and she said, why would you unfollow people that don't think like you, or you don't agree with them ideologically? Like, why would you close yourself off from information? And this is strikes at the heart at what is going on today, especially in social media, that people are so intellectually isolated. This is what people do, is they get in their silos, or they're so upset or pissed off or offended or outraged by anything that goes against what they think, that they're not even able to take any information in. They you block people, or you unfollow people, or you're like, go away, no I can't, oh my god. intellectual isolationism is not self-care. It's actually putting yourself in a box where you only relate to, things that you like or relate to, and you find that box getting a little smaller and smaller every day. You find yourself pushing out more and more ideas and more people, um, and you end up in a place where uh, you're going to be taken aback or taken by surprise by the things that are happening around you. It makes you less able to deal with reality. And reality is not always very nice. It's not always very pretty. It's not always what we want it to be. Reality is what it is. Reality is sometimes quite offensive. Reality is sometimes quite uncomfortable. Um, and it's not the right of human beings to be comfortable all the time, or to never be offended, or never be hurt, or never be put in, a bad situation. You're not living if that's the case. All of those things, all of those uncomfortable moments, and ideas are things that could probably help you become a better person. Just my thoughts. I'm going to read something. Another way past what the fuck installment. I kind of got a little backlogged on these, so there's actually one more after this I'm going to read this week. This is called A Modest Proposal, and this is from Friday, February 15th. This gets a little weird, guys, so just, hang out. Hang out and listen to the whole thing. In his 1729 essay, A Modest Proposal for Preventing the Children of Poor People of Ireland from Being a Burden on Their Parents or Country, and for Making Them Beneficial to the Public, Dr. Jonathan Swift proposed that the children of the poor can be used as a food source, saying, I have been assured by a very knowing American of my acquaintance in London that a young, healthy child, well nursed, is, at a year old, a most delicious, nourishing, and wholesome food, whether stewed, roasted, baked, or boiled, and I make no doubt that it will equally serve in a fricassee or a ragout. Disclaimer. No babies were harmed in the writing of this article. If there is anyone who takes offense at Dr. Swift's proposal, you would do well to remember it is satire. People seem to forget that when one talks about eating babies, I personally have never tried baby. Reproduction in a natural environment is intended to ensure the survival of the species, but in a natural environment, there is a balance. And when that balance is disrupted, as in too many new creatures being born and not enough old creatures dying off the land base, will suffer, and the creatures' numbers will be reduced to the point where the balance is restored. You see this happening again and again in nature. This is what happens to other animals. Culling the herd is, I believe, what that is called. We have skewed that balance big time, since we are now able to keep almost everyone alive and have reduced infant mortality, although the United States ranks 26th worldwide with the 6.1 deaths per 1,000. We are still well past merely ensuring the survival of the species. We have ensured to our detriment the domination of our species, and in doing so have set a course for the destruction of all life on Earth, including our own. The world population has more than doubled since 1965, from 3.32 billion to the 7.7 billion plus that we have today. There were, by some reports, 112 million native inhabitants of the United States pre-contact, before the white folk. And even then, certain areas were overpopulated. The difference between then and now is that the planet and the land base would have an opportunity to regenerate. If an area was overfished or overhunted, then the people would just move on, and having done no serious damage to the ecosystem, the area they left could recover. Now, however, we have reproduced our bad selves straight to the edge of extinction. There is no coming back from the damage we have done. According to the article, What is Carrying Capacity, by Lindsay Bailey, we all know that living things need resources in order to survive. We often, however, don't make the connection that the amount of available resources dictates the size of a population. that a population will grow when resources are in surplus, decline when resources are scarce, and stabilize when the population is at the maximum level that can be sustained. We have overshot that maximum level by a lot of many, many times, which is an actual number, although I do not know what that number is. And yet we continue. My wife's family is about as fertile and promiscuous as any group I have ever encountered. Their kids have kids, and those kids have kids, and on, ad infinitum, ad nauseum. They reproduce with impunity, with no thought to what these children are going to have to deal with in the next few years. With each new birth, the whole batch of them goes on and on about how cute the little darlings are. There is a theory, I don't know by whom, that babies are cute in order to protect them from us when we get tired of their annoying shit. It is my contention that in the near future, as food supplies dwindle and we have exhausted the supply of family pets and local rodents, that babies are going to have to get hella cute real quick. In order to avoid an honored place on the menu, they are going to have to adopt some serious next level cuteness, because they are going to start looking awfully tasty when the cupboards are bare. So be a love and put another baby on the Barbie, would you? Interesting article from Way Past What the Fuck, and this is satire, folks. Satire. Some jokes are not very nice, or are a little uncomfortable. The thing about overpopulation is that the problem in discussing overpopulation right now is that everybody, and especially, I don't know why, all the conspiracy folks go straight to depopulation agenda, or they're going to kill people. If you mention the word overpopulation, it rubs pretty much everybody the wrong way. The problem is that if you don't put on your helmet and have a discussion about overpopulation, like on the real, that is probably the main driver of our demise. That's probably the main reason why we are going to go extinct, is because there's too many of us eating too much food and using too much oil and doing too many things to destroy our habitat. We have overrun the earth. Somebody referred to humans in the comment section once as hairless ape rats or something like that. And that's kind of what we are. We have overrun and overstayed ourselves, our stay, I guess, if I want to say that twice, overstayed our stay. But one way to talk about overpopulation without making it seem like we've got to kill people, which is not what people intend at all when they talk about overpopulation. They talk about, well, overpopulation is a problem. How might we deal with this? The best way to deal with this would be to not have the babies, to stop having the children. At the massive and rapid rate that we seem to be having children. This would be the logical thing. Maybe a weird analogy I can bring to this is that, and one that people probably don't think about, there's all this, there's a movement in simplicity, or, clearing clutter or throwing things away, right? There's some woman on Netflix who has a show about, making everything nice and tidy. And people really get into like throwing things away and getting rid of all this garbage. And then they just buy more garbage. That actually would be akin to killing a bunch of people so we could have more people, which is totally, if you want to talk about something that's totally unethical, that's unethical. Actually, the way we treat people now is unethical, right? We want all the babies to come into the world, and then when they get here, we want to treat them like shit. And if they don't make it, or don't survive, or don't do the right thing, then we put them in jail, or we drive them, we put them in poverty, and then they don't have long lives, or they get ill and they, go homeless, and then they die on the street. That's kind of what we do to people right now. So if we actually really cared about people, we would not have as many babies and try to treat people who are here way better. How about that idea? Yeah, and as far as the clutter people go, how about, why not, instead of throwing everything thing away, why don't you just, if something's useful, why don't you find a spot for it? Why don't you keep the things you have, but stop consuming, stop buying, stop the knee jerk, like, I need to buy things, I need to have more things, more things, I need to, have a new wardrobe, or have a new shoe collection, or have new, sheets on my bed, or have new pillowcases, or have a new couch, or, instead of that thing where you have to buy everything new, just stop buying stuff and use the things you have until they're utterly and totally used up. That's how you actually stop the consumption train. Everything today is built to be thrown away. Everything is built with a quick turnover consumer model in mind. Things are not made to last. Cars, everything. Buildings, we build them, they last a couple years. We destroy them, we throw them away, we get a new thing. That's actually super destructive to the planet. If you had things that were built to last for a long time, you could use them for a really long time and not have to buy the new things. But they figured out long ago that there's not a lot of profit in that. Anyways, and there's not a lot of profit in taking care of people while they're here, instead of not having so many babies. You really take care of people while they're here. Probably not a lot of profit in that either. But way more humanitarian than anything we're doing right now. But we like to think that we care about people. Anyways, moving on. This is good title. I haven't read this article, but I want to read this article, so I'm going to read it now. 6 compelling reasons climate change might be a national emergency. So, as a response to Trump's made-up national emergency, here's one that actually is a national or global emergency. This is from Marshall Shepard, February 15th, 2019. There was a talk of a national emergency declaration. The national emergencies of 1976 spells out the broad powers and limitations of such an executive declaration. Some argue that activities at the U.S. southern border pose a grave threat to American lives. Statements from the Pentagon and other sources offer alternative perspectives on how dire things really are at the border. Experts estimate that between 445 and 600 homicides, not multiple thousands as claimed, were killed by undocumented immigrants in 2018. Right, giving some truth to what's going on. Studies also show that they are not more likely than U.S.-born individuals to commit homicide. There you go. I will let others debate the reality of the situation at the border. Well, here's another fact, is that actual illegal immigration is down by many times over what it was like 20 or 30 years ago. Heard a stat that it used to be at something like 2 million a year, and it's down to like 170,000 a year. So illegal immigration already is not the problem that it used to be, and it certainly isn't a national emergency, and it certainly isn't an invasion. So Trump is completely inflating all that stuff, obviously, just lying his ass off. Roughly 500 people were killed in only hurricanes, Harvey, Maria, Irma, Michael, Florence, from 2017 to 2018. The 2018 Camp Fire in California killed at least 85 people. Heat and flooding kills more people in the U.S. annually than any other weather disaster, and the numbers in 2018 were no different. How about that polar vortex? If a precedent is being set for national emergencies, there is a compelling argument for a future leader to consider climate change. Here are 6 reasons why. And this is interesting because I actually heard they already brought this up on the mainstream news, that if Trump goes through with this, it sets a precedent. And they're like, what if a Democrat gets elected and they declare some emergency about climate change or something crazy like that? These people are out of their minds. But that's exactly what they should do if a Bernie Sanders or a Tulsi Gabbard were elected president. That's exactly the first order of the day. That the first day in office should be like, national emergency, climate change, let's go. If they, had any sense. National security. Numerous reports by military entities, the military knows all about this, note that the immediate threats of climate change to national security. The American Security Project website compiles a good list of recent reports and articles on this topic. A 2019 Defense Department report stated the effects of a changing climate are a national security issue with potential impacts of Department of Defense missions, operation plans, and installations. I served as an expert scientist and author on the National Academy of Sciences report on climate change impacts on U.S. naval operations, so have a firsthand view of this challenge. A top admiral is also quoted as saying climate change is the biggest threat in the Pacific, not North Korea. This is the military. These are military people saying this. Public health. An array of public health concerns can be linked to climate change. Increased heat-related illnesses, vector-borne diseases in places they have traditionally not thrived, waterborne disease in floodwaters, cardiovascular stress, injuries from extreme weather events, respiratory problems, and so forth. The Centers for Disease Control website says climate change, together with other natural and human-made health stressors, influences human health and disease in numerous ways. Some existing health threats will intensify, and now new health threats will emerge. Not everyone is equally at risk. Important considerations include age, economic resources, and location. Sea level rise, according to NOAA. Nearly 40% of the U.S. population lived in counties bordering shorelines in 2010. By 2020, that number could be closer to 50%. A NOAA Ocean Services website is clear. Scientists have determined that global sea level has been steadily rising since 1900 at a rate of at least 0.04 to 0.1 inches per year. Sea level rise by two different mechanisms with respect to climate change can rise. First, as the oceans warm due to an increasing global temperature, seawater expands, taking up more space in the ocean basin and causing a rise in the water level. The second mechanism is the melting of ice over land, which then adds water to the ocean. Sea level is rising exponentially, by the way. Increased sea level causes transportation issues because of blue sky flooding, threatens drinking water supply because of saltwater intrusion in some locations, and amplifies risk from hurricane-related storm surge. Many U.S. military installations are also at or below sea level, which creates challenges for the Department of Defense. Already happening in Miami and other places, Alaska and Louisiana. Food supply and agricultural productivity. Scientific studies suggest that agricultural productivity is extremely vulnerable to climate change. The executive summary of 2013 U.S. Department of Agriculture report led with the following statement. Increase of atmospheric carbon dioxide, CO2, rising temperatures, and altered precipitation patterns will affect agricultural productivity. Increases in temperature coupled with more variable precipitation will reduce productivity of crops, and these effects will outweigh the benefits of increasing carbon dioxide. Effects will vary among annual and perennial crops in regions of the United States. However, all production systems will be affected to some degree by climate change. The most recent National Climate Assessment discussed how fish and seafood stocks were also threatened. I documented such concerns in a previous Forbes article also. Infrastructure. This is an area where there is likely potential room for bipartisan collaboration in the political world. Everyone recognizes the importance of roads, bridges, electrical grids, railways, and buildings. However, the 2014 National Climate Assessment offered a dire warning. Sea level rise, storm surge, and heavy downpours in combination with the pattern of continued development in coastal areas are increasing damage to U.S. infrastructure, including roads, buildings, and industrial facilities, and are also increasing risks to ports and coastal military installations. Flooding along rivers, lakes, and in cities following heavy downpours, prolonged rains, and rapid melting of snowpack is exceeding the limits of flood protection infrastructure designed for historical conditions. Extreme heat is damaging transportation infrastructure such as roads, rail lines, and airport runways. Attribution studies are increasingly identifying the fingerprint of climate change on current extreme weather events, and this is not likely to subside. In fact, things may get worse. Former Congressman Bob Inglis, Republican out of South Carolina, often argues that it is against sound conservative principle to ignore risk and not prepare for all possible scenarios. Thank you, Congressman Bob Inglis. We can't survive without water. This is a section on water, period. It is that simple. This is arguably the greatest threat of all. Much of the world is already water stressed. And in recent decades, this problem has not been restricted to the developing world. Parts of the southern and western United States are struggling with water issues. The EPA website suggests that in many areas, climate change is likely to increase water demand while shrinking water supplies. This shifting balance would challenge water managers to simultaneously meet the needs of growing communities, sensitive ecosystems, farmers, ranchers, energy producers, and manufacturers. In some areas, water shortages will be less of a problem than increases in runoff, flooding, or sea level rise. These effects can reduce the quality of water and can damage the infrastructure that we use to transport and deliver water. Beyond fatalities, a 2018 government report suggests that climate change could harm or erode the U.S. economy and U.S. gross domestic product. Oh no. Oh darn. Oh, don't let that happen. As much as I care about polar bears, I didn't mention them once. Climate change certainly impacts them, and actions must be taken on their behalf too. However, I laid out 6 kitchen table or societally relevant threats to all of us. For us, our kids, this is a national emergency too. And that's it. That's that. That's the end of that article. Hope you enjoyed that. And lastly, I'm going to hit a couple of things very quickly. I'm not going to read the whole article, but just give you some headlines. There was a big school strike in England. Kids striking over climate change. Schools climate strike, why we skip school to protest. As young people walk out of the schools and colleges across England to protest over climate change, they tell us why they are taking action. Clutching a sign showing a picture of David Attenborough with the words, "Do it for David," 17-year-old Macy was among hundreds of protesters at the Bristol rally. Across the UK, students called on the government on Friday to declare a climate emergency and take immediate steps to tackle it. Good for you. I think, you know, as evidenced by The Guardian, and maybe the BBC, and I don't know about other news outlets in England, but I think that they're getting more news on a mainstream level about climate change in England than we do in the States. And there may be a little less denialism there. I'm just assuming that, and maybe I'm totally wrong. But in the States, you know, denialism is just such a hot commodity right now. But we have, you know, so little, not just talk about climate change on the mainstream news channels, but it's just like pushed to the back or pushed to the bottom. And people are, you know, and you have the whole Fox News apparatus just going really hard against anybody trying to talk about climate change right now. I'm not going to talk any more about this, but yes, this happened. This is a great thing. There's lots of articles on this climate strike, the school strike by the students. And lastly, here's a article from Truth Out. The U.S. military is poisoning Germany. You don't say. I think they're poisoning everybody. That would be fair to say. This is from yesterday. Germany is experiencing a public health crisis with millions of people potentially exposed to drinking water contaminated with per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS. A major source of this chemical contamination comes from the aqueous film forming foam, or AFFF, used in routine fire training on U.S. military bases. Aqueous film forming foam. Aqueous film forming foam. I guess I can say that fast. After igniting, then dousing massive fires with the lethal foam containing PFAS, the American bases allow the poisons to leach into the groundwater to contaminate neighboring communities which use groundwater in their wells and municipal water systems. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, exposure to PFAS may result in adverse health effects, including developmental effects to fetuses during pregnancy or to breastfed infants, e.g. low birth weight, accelerated puberty, skeletal variations, cancer, liver effects, immune effects, thyroid effects, and other effects. PFAS also contributes to micropenis and low sperm count in males. Good Lord, not micropenis. Confidential U.S. military documents leaked to the German news magazine Volksfreund in 2014 showed that the groundwater at Ramstein Air Base contained 264, I don't know, UG over L, I don't know what that is, or 264,000 parts per trillion of PFAS. Other samples at Ramstein were shown to contain 156 and a half parts per trillion, 156,500 parts per trillion. The water monitoring program at the state of Rhineland and Palatinate in the vicinity of the Sprengdalam Air Base found PFAS at concentrations of almost 2,000 parts per trillion. The drainage system in Sprengdalam is still spreading the chemicals. Yeah. I mean, the military is just, even though the military knows all about climate change and environmental destruction, they're hand over fist. They don't care about the environment. That's not their job, is to protect the environment. And their job is just to do military things. Environment be damned, no matter the costs to the environment. This is why part of the Green New Deal, or part of any possible mitigation of climate change, has to include the if not altogether, all the way dismantling of the military industrial complex, a severe restriction on military endeavors, in order to clean up the mess, in order to stop the damage and destruction, and in order to clean up the mess. Maybe converting the entire military into a civilian climate change force would actually be what is necessary. Maybe that could be done by declaring a national emergency and dealing with climate change as the existential threat that it is, because it's not the Russians or the Chinese. It's us. It's the Americans. It's the capitalists. It's the corporatists. It's the people that must buy and do and use and wear and I don't know what. It's the people that we have to kill and fight and war against. I think everybody knows, at least the powers that be, I think globally know what the problem is. I think the moment somebody just opened their mouths and said, like, guys, maybe we should do something about this, you'd probably find a lot more agreement than disagreement. You probably find a lot of, China already knows, they're already doing. Russia, they don't seem to care as much, but I'm positive that Putin knows. I'm positive that he would be like, yeah, maybe we should do something about this if it was brought to his attention globally, on a global stage. Anyways, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. Until next time, peace.